bench scraper, get yourself a bench scraper, but this is a pie thing. It works just as well. You just want something thin. You want a good amount of flour out on your cutting board, wooden table works great. If you have plastic like linoleum, or not like
Formica?
Formica, like like the mica countertops, that's fine. See, it's really nice and stretchy. And like I said, this is a little bit of a different dough. And I have a big thing of flour. I roll it around so it doesn't stick to my surface. I give it a nice coating, and it makes it much easier to work with. And basically, if you chop it in half, you end up with these giant loaves. If you chop it in 3, you end up with much more manageable loaves. Depending on how much bread you eat, that'll depend. So I'm just going to do 1 tonight. That way I don't have to transport so much. Typically we would do all 3. So this is your chunk of dough. You're going to stretch it out. And like I said, this is bagel dough, so it's going to go back in there anyways, and I'm going to chop it up. But I'm going to treat it like loaf bread. I know how to, I can abuse it. It'll be fine. Like I said, I have tried to screw this up so many times. It's fine. It'll be fine. So don't let it scare you off. You're gonna flatten it out as much as you can without ripping it. You're gonna do half and half, and then you're going to roll it up. And this is when you clear off the excess flour, because you're going to sit it on end and you're going to fold it over. You're going to pull it towards yourself. And if you have to put more flour on, you will have to put more flour on your hands, because you don't want it sticking to your hands, but you want to create a little bit of friction against the surface, because it helps create tension on your dough, on the surface of your dough. And then you get that. And typically you would take that on a piece of parchment paper and you would put it in your basket or your bowl. Like I said, dollar store. They are my favorite. You put this in and you close it and you put it in the fridge overnight. That gives the yeast, it may grow a little bit more as it cools down the dough. If you don't have time to refrigerate your dough, which if you refrigerate your dough and give it a minimum of a 12-hour ferment, you get a more robust loaf. It does better. It tastes better. If you don't have time, leave it sit in the fridge for a few hours. And when you preheat your oven, put it in the freezer for an hour, hour and a half. It'll do like a flash freeze, and it'll make the surface of the dough nice and tight so you can score it. On baking day, preheat, make sure that your Dutch oven is oven proof to at least 475 to 500. Because you are going to preheat your oven with the Dutch oven in your oven on the second to the lowest rack for an hour and a half. It is going to be piping hot. So preheat to 475. When you put your dough in, so you take it out, and I forgot my lame. A bread lame it's a razor blade. It's basically a razor blade. You slash it, one slash needs to be a good 1/2 inch deep. That gives it the ability to rise and to expand. Sometimes you'll get a really pretty ear, sometimes you won't. There's nothing wrong with your bread. I found today throwing it in the freezer for 1/2 hour to an hour while the oven is preheating creates enough surface tension that when you put it in your Dutch oven, you get that nice pretty ear. Preference. Some people like the ears, some people don't. It's not a big deal. It doesn't mean that your dough is good or bad. It's just that part is a little bit temperamental. When the oven has preheated for an hour and a half, put your dough, your bread, it acts like a sling. I guess I can do this. Hold it like this. Once it's slashed, put it in your Dutch oven, put the lid on, bake it for 35 minutes.
That was simulating the parchment paper, right?
Yes, it was, but you know.
You don't want to do it on a plastic bag.
Don't do it on plastic.
Yeah,
No, yeah. To keep, the other thing, to keep the bottom of your bread from burning, put a cookie sheet. Obviously make sure that cookie sheet is safe to like 500 degrees because it's going to be right down on the bottom of your oven. On that bottom rack, slide it in under your Dutch oven. And as well as having roughly 4-ply aluminum foil.
I remember the
inside your
aluminum
Dutch
foil, I
oven.
forgot the cookie sheet. That's why mine got so dark on the bottom.
Yeah, the cookie sheet, and you can do 4 or 6-ply of sheets of aluminum foil in the bottom of your Dutch oven. Will give you that. It will keep it from burning. 35 minutes gives you a nice, beautiful color without being too thick for your crust. It bakes it completely through. Yeah, it just, for me, that's the sweet spot. I have seen so many recipes say bake it for 500 degrees for 20 minutes and then with the lid on and then drop it down to 450 and take the lid off. It burned. That's one of the loaves that I burned. I tried preheating to 500 and then dropping it down to 475 like another recipe did. That was the second loaf I burned. Would not recommend it. 475 and then dropping it, when you put the bread in, drop it down to 450. That's the sweet spot, at least for me.
After a half hour?
No, when you put the bread in your Dutch oven and you cover it and you close the oven, turn the temperature down to 450. Yeah.
Is that for the half size of dough or for a third?
That works both for the third and the half. If when you take off the lid to take out your dough, after 35 minutes and you say, hey, I want it a little bit darker, you can put the lid back on, close it up, and bake it for another 5 to 10 minutes.
If you have the 3 loaves, but you only have 1 Dutch oven, what do you do with the other 2 while they're waiting?
Keep them in the fridge.
Okay,
Or actually, you can keep them in the freezer.
okay.
In the fridge, freezer, whatever you want. If you did an overnight ferment, your dough is cold enough to where you can, it's fine. If you're doing same day sourdough, it's not gonna have the depth of the flavor and it's gonna be a little softer. It's gonna be a little warmer. So you'll wanna do that flash freeze. It just
How long can you keep those other loaves in the fridge before you bake them?
couple days, 2-3 days. It just will, the flavor of your dough will get more and more sour. So heads up on that one. If you don't like a super sour dough, you know, just don't, because it'll continue fermenting and using up the starches and deepening that flavor.
When you're putting the aluminum foil, you got the cookie sheet on the one rack, and then do you do the aluminum foil underneath the Dutch oven? Or
No, inside,
inside?
in the bottom of it, yeah.
Okay.
I've seen some people use the little racks for their Instapot in there. I have not tried that yet. I lost my rack, so I need to find it before I can try it, obviously. But there's a lot of people saying that they have success with that. My Dutch oven at our elevation, there's some people that'll put rice in the bottom of their Dutch oven instead of aluminum foil. At our elevation, that to me creates a fire hazard. It's gonna burn your rice. It's gonna toast it, and it's because it's burning your rice, because it's so hot, it'll alter your flavor of your bread. So I wouldn't really recommend that. There's some people that will use like glass marbles, or like the glass, you know, the little glass stones. Don't do it. You risk glass shards in there. Still others will put a few ice cubes in the Dutch oven to create steam. I don't find that necessary, and you risk shattering the enamel on your Dutch oven. Not worth it. Dutch ovens are expensive. And keeping the lid on the whole time, it has enough water in this particular recipe that you don't need to add extra water. It just evaporates out, it keeps it moist, it keeps it, you know, and it keeps it from burning. And you can see, like, it is a cracker, a really nice thin cracker crust. Yeah. It's pretty easy, don't overthink it. Don't let people scare you out of doing it. Any other questions?
I missed the aluminum foil part, so I would.
Okay, so 4 to 6 ply or layers of aluminum foil. Smash it down before it gets hot.
In the
Before
Dutch
you
oven?
put it in the oven, make sure that the bottom of your Dutch oven has like the 4. I wouldn't do less than 4. You can do up to 6. It'll add just a little extra protection. And just make sure it covers the entire bottom.
So you do squares, stack them, put it in the Dutch oven to shape
Yeah,
it.
and I fold
and
the
then-
edges down. I fold the edges down, so because I have one Dutch oven that's an oval. It's, I think, a 7.5 quart, and I have one that's a 5.5 quart, and they both fit perfectly in the oven.
So that goes in, and then the cookie sheet goes on the bottom rack.
Yeah, so there's 2 racks. You'll have that one is the very bottom. That's where the cookie sheet will go. And then the next one up is where your Dutch oven will go.
Okay. And then the
Yeah.
foil goes in, and then the parchment paper goes in.
Your parchment paper holds your bread dough, so that doesn't go in until you set your bread dough in.
But the foil, you don't heat that foil.
Huh?
Do you heat the foil?
Yeah, the foil stays in there.
Put it in
The
before
foil
you
stays
put
in
it.
there, but you have a barrier between, you know, the parchment paper and the dough.
Okay.
Yeah. Some people open bake. I have not, I can do open bake with commercial yeast, but for some reason sourdough, at our elevation, I have not had success with open baking. It ends up too thick, the crust is too thick, it burns it. It's just a little bit different. Yeah. Any other questions?
Okay. Joanne, come pick these 3 cards, please. 3 cards.
Are we through with this?
Yeah, you can find that.
Wave to everybody, bye.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Got it.